Have you ever wondered if there was any good reason for taking a test? Taking tests can be stressful, especially when you are worried about midterms or finals in multiple classes. Through this lesson, we want to help you better understand how to prepare and take tests. The three main points we will be covering in this lesson are what to do before the test, what to do during the test, and what to do after the test. Tom Bodett once said, "The difference between school and life, in school, you're taught a lesson and then given a test. In life, you're given a test that teaches you a lesson." We will be tested in a lot of different ways, whether it be through school or through everyday experience. It's important to know how to be prepared so you can pass those tests that come your way. Remember what Benjamin Franklin said, "If you fail to prepare, prepare to fail." So don't fail simply because you weren't prepared. We should also remember what President Thomas S. Monson has said. "Let us shed any thought of failure. Let us discard any habit that may hinder. Let us see, let us obtain the prize prepared for all, even exaltation, in the celestial kingdom of God." Preparing is an important part of success. An Olympic athlete doesn't just wake up the morning of the Olympics without training and say, "I'm going to win a gold medal today." It takes hard work, dedication, and discipline. Similar steps have to be taken when preparing for or taking a test. You won't do well on a test for which you have not put forth the effort. Although an Olympic athlete is totally different from a college student taking a test, they both take similar steps to reach the outcome they are striving for. Here are some examples. Both set goals. Just like athletes, good test takers set goals to get good test scores. They break tasks down. Test takers concentrate on pieces of study and focus on parts where they need more understanding. Both are persistent. Test takers do something daily to prepare for the test, working on the goal they have set for themselves. They are both aware of weaknesses. Test takers know what part of the test they need to work twice as hard on. They both use other resources. Test takers seek help from tutors, the library, and teachers. Both get nervous. Test takers can be anxious, worried, or nervous before taking a test. Both need a warm-up. Test takers have a good breakfast and get plenty of sleep the night before, along with reviewing their notes and testing themselves. Both take all equipment to practice. Test takers need pencils, textbooks, notes, and flashcards when preparing and practicing for a test, and they both tell others about their goals. Test takers have teachers and classmates to help them reach their goal. Both make changes if no progress is made. Test takers can change the way or location of their study. They both don't miss. Test takers do not miss class or review sessions. Both an athlete and a test taker don't win every time. Test takers don't always get A's every time they take a test. And like athletes, test takers shouldn't associate their self-worth with always getting an A on the test. They should always work towards their goal and do the best they can. To keep up with our goals to succeed in test taking, we must pay attention to the learning outcomes within the course. Why should we know the learning outcomes of the lesson objectives? Because generally these outcomes determine what is on the assessment or the test. Before taking a test, you must review. Review regularly so you don't have to cram right before the test. Do daily reviews. Review your notes and the portions of the text you have highlighted or underlined in your previous assignment. Do weekly reviews. Allow 1 hour at least once a week for each subject to review material from the prior weeks. Do major reviews. Have review sessions between 2 to 5 hours with sufficient breaks so the effectiveness of your review doesn't begin to drop. Schedule reviews and review key topics 5 days before you'll be tested on them. Create study checklists of the things you need to learn. Create flashcards. Review these flashcards whenever you have a spare minute, and then take a practice test. Write up your own suggestions. Be able to explain material in your own words. Form study groups and have classmates quiz you with questions they have formulated about the topic. Studies have shown that the best way to retain information is not just rereading your notes, like what most students do, but by self-testing. It's been proven that you can recall information after a longer period of time by practice tests. Once you have prepared the best you can for your test, the next step is taking the test. Here are some things you should do during the test. Preview the test. Read directions carefully. Note the kind of questions and the points of value of each. Make a test smart plan. Answer essay questions first. It will build confidence and calm test anxiety. Answer questions that are worth the most points. Memory dump. As soon as you sit down to take the test, write down any information you might need to know for the test. If you get stuck, move on. If you feel anxious, refocus. Be sure to provide an answer for each question. When you feel you have finished your test, look it over. Make sure you didn't miss anything. Double check your work. Review your answers. Start with sections worth the most points and then continue on to the other sections. Multiple choice questions can be a little tricky to answer, but here are a few steps to help you understand ways to answer them. First, answer each question in your head, then read all possible answers before selecting one. Test each possible answer and eliminate incorrect answers. Answering true and false questions can be rather tricky, but with a few tips, you will know what to look for when taking your next true and false test. Read the entire question. If any part of a true-false question is false, the entire question is false. Watch for double negatives. What is a double negative? Here are some examples. By crossing out the negatives in these sentences, you can figure out whether this statement is true or false. A sky that is not uncloudy is not an unclear sky equals false. A straight line is not an indirect path between 2 points equals true. While figuring out true-false questions, look for absolute qualifiers or statements expressed in absolute terms. Examples of absolute qualifiers would be words such as always, none, only, never, all, or absolutely. These typically lead to an answer that is false. When you look for qualifiers, look for words like some, often, may, usually, most, and many. Typically these lead to an answer that is true. Matching questions can sometimes have multiple outcomes. Before answering any of them, read through both columns. Check to see if the number of items in each column is equal. Match words that are similar grammatically. When matching individual words with phrases, first read a phrase, then look for the word that logically completes the phrase. Now go ahead and begin answering the questions that you know. Cross out items in each column when you are through with them. Make educated guesses with the ones you don't know. Essay questions can be the worst part when taking a test. So first, know what the essay is asking. Before writing, make a quick outline. Be sure to write legibly. You don't want to lose points for sloppy handwriting. Make sure you write on one side of the paper. Look for directional words that will help you answer the question. Stay on topic. And within your writings, be sure to restate the question. Now here are some tips to help you predict essay questions. First, use your notes to help you predict. Some forms of essay questions you might have on your test are trace questions, discussion questions, short answer form, and compare and contrast questions. Now let's go through the items you should look for in your notes so you can predict each of these types of questions. If your notes show the steps in a process or the development of something, you should predict a trace question. If your notes describe the effects of one thing on another, or the significance of a particular event, or the role of a specific individual or institution, predict a discussion question. If in your notes there are lists of people or things, you can predict a short answer question. If in your notes they describe two or more things that have some features which are similar and others which are different, predict a compare and contrast question. Now here are some tips when you have fill-in-the-blank questions on your test. Be sure to concentrate on keywords and facts, and be sure to be brief. Knowing the material frontward and backwards can help with answering fill-in-the-blank questions. Most tests are being computer graded, so here are some things you should remember. First, make sure the answer you mark matches the question you are answering. Then double check to make sure you are on the right answer when you change pages or when you move to a new column on the answer sheet. Also, watch for stray marks because sometimes they can look like answers. And if you change an answer, make sure to erase the wrong answer thoroughly, removing all pencil marks completely. When you are done with your test, be sure not to leave the test too soon. First, take a deep breath and then carefully glance back over your test. Check items you are uncertain of and make sure all questions were answered. After your test, evaluate your progress. Here are some questions to ask yourself. Did you not study some of the information or skills covered on the test? Did you know the information covered on the exam but get the questions wrong anyways? Were you just not good at answering the kind of questions the teacher asked? Or did you not follow the directions? A few other questions you could ask are, did you lose points for questions you could have answered but didn't get to? Did you know the material but just made careless mistakes? Were you panicked and too stressed to answer questions even though you knew the answer? After asking these questions, then you can ask yourself how might you study differently for the next exam. President Thomas S. Monson said, "Our responsibility is to rise from mediocrity to competence, from failure to achievement. Our task is to become our best selves. One of God's greatest gifts to us is the joy of trying again, for no failure ever need be final." Now you are better prepared for what to do before, during, and after your test. Being committed and working hard along with the tips and strategies we have talked about will help you become successful when it comes to test taking.